Hell hath no fury like a teenager's scorn. OCS growing up, my family ran a business dealing with water and wastewater pumps. By the time I was in high school, I worked for them outside of school as needed, and I'd grown up around the industry. At the time of this story, I was 16, maybe 17. I got a few funny looks out in the field sometimes, but normally wasn't a problem. This time it was. Many sales they make do are bids. You go to the Builders Exchange, which is basically a library for plans and blueprints. You pull the plans, get to the part applicable to you, and see what they want or need. Then you submit a price you think will win you the job. Many times, the plans will actually specify a model that meets their needs, in which case you bid that or a comparable one. Other times, they will give you specifications and selection, and matching is up to you. Going through books and software for curves, chart that shows how it flows under load. This time was the former. The job is a retrofit/expansion on the city plant. The engineer had specified a model of pump he wanted, and I'd matched its specs. Put in a submittal for approval on the substitution as required. It gets approved, and we're cleared to enter a bid. We proceed forward, putting together the bid. At one point, I have the plans in front of me, and I'm looking at the drawings. I don't like what I'm seeing, which is a lot of pipe and a lot of distance. I check and recheck and come up with the same result. The total head is how far you're pumping, calculated by distance and including losses from the pipe, is too much for the pipe that was specified. Way too much. This puts the pump way outside its curve. It's going to be deep into overload. I used my correct numbers and found a proper match, but not only was it significantly more expensive, but physically different, would require large revisions. So I put together a revised submittal with the numbers I ran and the recommended pump. It included the math from the drawings and curves. Faxed it over to the engineer's office, then I called him. It did not go well. Not only did he not listen to me, he was more than happy to lecture me. How dare I, a kid, tell him how to do his job? No, he would not accept any revisions or resubmittals. I had no idea what I was talking about, and I, personally, was no longer to have contract on this project. He did not use nice words. This couldn't stand. It was going to cause serious problems down the line. So I did the only thing I could think of. I found the contract for city planning and told him. Made it about 3 minutes into trying to explain who I was and why I was calling before he cut me off and told me to refer to engineer and to not contact him again. Tried again for someone else later. Did not make it past the receptionist. As you wish. I took the revised submittal and filed it to the back of the job file and moved on. I wasn't needed for the rest and had other things to do, plus school. Fast forward almost 2 years, now going to college, still working for my folks as needed. Construction complete, get called in for startup, goes smoothly as it should, and the countdown to destruction begins. I think the first one went after about 3 months. Only made it that long because those pumps are very well built. Emergency ship in a replacement. Second one a week or 3 after. Then another. And another. Then the replacements start failing. The whole time these are being invoiced including emergency shipping and having to run out to start them up every time. They have no choice. This is the model the pads were cast for and the piping run for. You can't directly substitute something else, like say, the correct pumps. Then it gets really fun. They start returning the burnt-out units for warranty. The factory starts receiving these and tearing them down for failure analysis. I told our rep straight up that they were being run way outside their design point knowingly. He was not amused. Warranty is denied, and they are billed for the diagnostic time and shipping. Manufacturer was in Germany BTW. Shout out to all the fine folks at KSB. Love ya. These units are neither small nor light. Plus these are being shipped as emergency orders. It's not cheap. Warranties officially denied to the buyer. We tell them in no uncertain terms that this isn't a problem with the units. This is now almost a year after the plant was due to come online. Now it really hits the fan. City Council gets involved because this is a municipal plant. Lawsuits are threatened, and a council meeting is scheduled to discuss further action. I marked the day and arranged with my teachers to take a few days off. Didn't live close to home. Drove 3.5 hours to see my parents and to visit their filing cabinet. Right where I left it. Out came the revised submittal, and a quick trip to the Kinko's, a local copy shop, provided some wonderful blown-up posters of said submittal as well as the proofs behind it. The next day, I drove another 2.5 hours up to said city. Had a lovely meatball sandwich at a restaurant right across the street from the council building and showed up to the council meeting. I even dressed up nice for the occasion. I didn't say anything to anyone. Just sat in the back in my chair with my rolled up posters next to me and waited. Took about 40 minutes. The council finally brings up the plant. Guess who comes up to testify in front of the council? It's engineer. He goes on for about 10 minutes talking bad about our company and how we are denying the warranties. Basically states that the problem is due to the substitution that our pumps were substandard. This is a loss now counted in the millions between the downtime and replacement costs and rejected warranties, labor, etc. The council swallows his BS hook, line, and sinker. He sits down and the council starts discussing among themselves. This is my cue. I stand up, approach the podium, and wait for them to notice me. Doesn't take long as I'm a teenager in a city council meeting. I introduce myself and unroll the posters. Hi, I'm Crispy Silicon from Going to Ruin Your Day. Before you proceed any further, you should probably have a look at this, which is the revised submittal I sent to engineer prior to the initial bid. You'll note the date. Also attached, you'll find the supporting calculations, relevant drawings from the original plans, and the recommendation of a larger suitable unit. You'll also see the fax acknowledgement sheet showing it was received by his office. Immediately after sending that, I contacted engineer directly and advised him of these issues. He declined. I was told outright to keep my nose out of things I didn't understand and to leave engineering to the adults. He was well aware the units would self-destruct if run at this point. After that, I called your planner, who refused to listen and referred me back to engineer. If you'd like, I'd be more than willing to contact our phone provider so they can verify that fax and those calls were placed. I'm grinning like the Cheshire Cat at this point, and I'm not holding back the evil one bit. I'm sure I looked like a psychopath. Couldn't help it. Also didn't care. Dead silence. So yeah, the warranties are void as all of the units were operated well beyond their design point. I still stand by the revised submittal, so feel free to call when you're ready. I'll leave these here. Still completely silent. The entire council looked so shocked. Then, after a few seconds, one of the ladies on the council gave me a, "Thank you, Mr. Silicon. You can go." I left my posters on the podium, turned and walked, made full eye contact with the engineer as long as I could with that same grin. He looked like he was probably going to vomit. Didn't stick around to check. Stopped by to give my folks a hug on the way back to school, and that was the end of my involvement. No idea what happened to engineer or planner, but the city paid every invoice in full without another peep. They had continued to purchase replacement after replacement to limp it along while simultaneously trying to re-refit the plant. They finally got it fixed after about another year, but by that time, I can't imagine how far over the projected estimate they were. It's amazing how one or two people that think they're so high and mighty and their ego is so big that they don't listen to a child that probably knows more than them costs the taxpayer probably hundreds of thousands. It's so stupid. But look how much I saved. In the 1980s, I was working for a company that did custom software development for large companies. All our employees were salaried with full benefits, including paid holidays and vacation. I was an account manager, responsible for a bunch of our people working on a project a client signed. This was a very important project for our biggest client, generating several $1 million in revenue. It was a good company to work for, and we were very profitable. So profitable that we were acquired by a much larger corporation that had absolutely no experience in our business. Within 6 months, all of our senior managers had been forced out. Our branch manager, my immediate superior, was replaced by a guy fresh out of the corporation's management training program. His entire background was in finance and HR. It was late October when he called me in to discuss my account's performance, specifically how our costs were out of control. Item 1 was vacation. He noticed that several of my people had accrued lots of vacation days, and this shows up as a liability on the balance sheet. I explained how this was actually a good thing. When a person takes a vacation day, we have to pay him, but we can't bill the client for his time. Our policy was that people could cash in their accrued vacation at any time. The money we paid them was less than the revenue that they generated by working. He explained that was contrary to corporate policy as people would be paid twice for the same day. Effective immediately, all vacation must be used within the calendar year it was earned or it would be lost. Item 2 was paid time off. We had no formal policy covering personal and sick days. I told my troops that I expected them to be at work every day, but if they needed to leave early or take a day off for some personal business or because they were sick, I was okay with that, and they'd get paid. But if it became a problem, like the guy who called in sick every Monday because he spent the weekend drinking or the woman who left early every Wednesday to get a manicure, we would take action. While we did have a couple of people who were out sick for a relatively long time, most took 2 to 3 days each year. Sorry, that was against policy. Effective immediately, all employees will receive 5 personal sick days each year. And again, it was a use M or lose M. Item 3 was overtime. He couldn't believe that we were paying salaried people for working overtime. I explained that again, this is a good thing. When a client asked our people to work overtime, we billed for those hours. Since we had already factored all of our overhead into the hourly billing range, the profit margin on overtime hours was a lot higher than normal hours. He couldn't grasp that. As far as he was concerned, salaried people do not get paid for overtime. I said that if we stop paying overtime, people will stop working it and we will lose revenue. He didn't believe that. He assumed that everyone would happily put in the extra time for free. Effective immediately, we would no longer pay for overtime. Item 4 was the killer. There was a guy on my project, Rich, who was widely regarded as a true expert on the software platform we were using. He literally wrote a book on the subject and taught a class at the community college. We managed to land this project because we agreed that Rich would be assigned to it. Because he was so good, we were able to bill him out at about twice as much as the other people on the project. His salary was also a lot higher than the others. According to the official corporate salary guidelines, Rich's salary was way above the max for his pay grade. I was told to replace him with someone cheaper. At this point, I knew that arguing was a waste of time. The next day, I told my troops about the new policies regarding vacation, personal time, and overtime. They were less than pleased. I reminded them that this was the end of October, and they had to use all of their accrued vacation and personal days before year-end. I got our recruiters looking for someone to replace Rich. In mid-December, my new manager asked me again why Rich was still on the payroll. I said we were looking for a replacement, but it was impossible to find someone with his expertise and credentials. He said I had to get Rich off the payroll before year-end, and we'd worry about finding a replacement in January. I gave Rich the bad news. In February, I attended a meeting of all the account managers. In attendance was our area manager, our branch manager's boss. Branch manager proudly reported that he had eliminated overtime and the vacation backlog. He had also reduced headcount. Rich was not the only high-value employee to be let go. Then, his boss asked why revenue was down by almost 20%. Branch manager had no explanation and blamed the sales staff. I raised my hand and explained that everyone took their accrued vacation, which for my account alone was more than 200 billable days. Since the new policy went into effect, almost everyone took their 5 days. Finally, the elimination of OT resulted in a loss of almost 20 billable days. Since our average daily billing rate was $500, my account generated $150,000 less revenue than the previous quarter. All the other account managers reported similar numbers. Then, I said that my entire project was about to be canceled. We had missed a key deadline because so many people had taken time off. But the biggest problem was Rich's termination. The contract specifically said that Rich would be assigned as the technical lead. Since he was no longer our employee, we were in breach of the contract and the client was going to pull the plug. Within a week, the new branch manager was transferred to another division in another state, where he could happily count paper clips and rolls of toilet paper. And Rich was brought back as an independent contractor. He knew the position we were in and demanded a considerable increase, driving our profit margin on him to almost zero. But the damage was done. The new policies on vacation and overtime remained in effect, and we all started leaving to work for our competition. Within 2 years, corporate shut it down completely.